Everybody in the car. I'm clapping, which means I'm serious. Where are your shoes? Where are your shoes? Come on, you only have one sock on. Where's your other sock? Jimmy, stop standing in the toilet. Marcus, did you just unwrap a pudding pop? Why did you? No, don't put it in the silverware drawer. Brent, where is Brent? Where's my adoring husband? Brent, back the Chevy out. Brent, you're still in your underwear. You're playing Beat Saber. I laid out your church clothes last night so we wouldn't have this problem. Go get Jimmy. He was standing in the toilet, and now he's filling the bathtub and pouring my perfume into it. I'll handle Jimmy. You clean Marcus's face.
Rachel, my adoring wife, your father's not going anywhere. It's not like he can die twice.
But we have to get to the viewing before Patriot Sam gets there so we can make sure he doesn't turn Dad's autogyro accident political.
2020 Chevy Equinox. Straight out of the School of Conformity and right into your 2,000 square foot, 2-story home with a detached garage. Congratulations, General Motors. You found a way to make a turbocharged car boring. But not in a turbo Volvo way. A turbo Volvo is slow and endearing, like an Alaskan Malamute trying to play with an athletic German Shepherd. A Chevy Equinox is a turbocharged, double-cam, 4-cylinder, powered crossover. So you think it's going to be fast, kind of, but it just sort of looks at you and sighs, like a chocolate lab who is so over your bullshit. The ECU doesn't let the engine rev to redline under wide-open throttle, there's no boost gauge, and there's no noise coming from the turbo. The turbo is just a supplemental power adder, so the 1.5-liter engine doesn't feel broken. Crossovers have to make EPA requirements now, so gone are the days of small crossovers and SUVs having V6 options so they don't feel slow. The Duratec V6 in Ford's own Escapes and Mariners was almost as slow as the 4-cylinder, but could pull up hills okay. And that's what the GM Ecotec Turbo 4 feels like in this 2020 model. It feels like a furred V6 Duratec from 2004.
This episode of Regular Car Reviews is sponsored by Factor. Achieve and maintain your 2023 goals with Factor. Get America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit and start saving time eating well and living your best life yet. No matter your lifestyle, Factor has delicious flavor-packed meals to live to the fullest with keto, calorie-smart, vegan, and veggie, and Protein Plus options on the menu each week. Each meal has all of the ingredients you need to feel satisfied all day long. And that's what we're talking about here. This is meal prep. And what meal prep is really about is about portion control. And my 20s are long gone, which means my metabolism is reaching dad bod stage. So in order to look svelte, I have to watch how much food is going in my face hole. So that's what meal prep companies like this help you do. And if I want a snack, I can have a smoothie. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code REGULAR50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Once again, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code REGULAR50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. And now, back to mom style.
Here we go. Give me the turbo. Oh.
It doesn't have a ton of beans, but...
All right, I mean...
It's a good grocery.
It has a speedometer that goes up to 8,000 RPM and it's shifting at 5,200 RPM.
It is a perfect car for just...
The difference is, at 80 miles an hour, the Ecotec doesn't sound like a single-core Windows XP computer trying to stream on Twitch. The Chevy Equinox might as well be called the Mary Kay Mobile, a Girl Scout fundraiser for adult women whose idea of a girl boss is somebody who leaves her rehearsal dinner to take a phone call about something that could have been a text. The streets of the internet are lined with stay-at-home moms with an eat-say side hustle, and the Chevy Equinox is how they get to the farmer's market to put the word out. Piled high with handmade scarves and painted rocks, and upcycled candles made from the melted remains of better candles. Cash only! Chevy Equinox, the official car of people whose favorite Sunday activity is going to mom and pop shops and threatening to take their business elsewhere. If your defense against knowing nothing is pretending you know everything, here's a car for you. If you have a neglected houseplant that's gone longer without sunlight than the mummy at the Reading Museum, here's a car for you. If you emailed Netflix customer support because you hit skip intro but there was still an extra 5 seconds of intro, here's a car for you. If you demanded a refund for your diner milkshake because they made exactly the correct amount for one milkshake, but you are already looking forward to the extra metal cup with all the excess milkshake that they usually bring to the table, here's a car for you. Man, woman, non-binary, early 20s, or senior citizen, doesn't matter. The Chevy Equinox embodies that kind of hostile conformity typically found in people who play the victim in situations they created. People who find ways to weaponize their own dissatisfaction. Because when your needs aren't being met, you don't look inward. You don't have a conversation. You just start looking for the nearest person who hasn't had their day ruined yet. It's not, how do I make myself feel better? It's, how do I make everyone else feel as lousy as I do? And okay, maybe that's not fair, but look at this car. It's hard to imagine any car better encapsulating the bland, featureless aesthetic of a person whose Long Island iced teas are never strong enough. Or worse, some middle-aged glory days high school quarterback buying a round of shots that the table of college seniors didn't ask for. There's just something off-putting about the Equinox, like encountering a stranger in a dark alley. And yet, whatever hang-ups we might have about the Equinox, we really can't act like it's the fault of the car. There isn't anything inherently wrong with going with something more affordable than, say, a Honda CR-V. Buying something decently reliable for less money is a hallmark of good decision-making, because we're all just making our way through life. And like a giant game of Operation, we're doing our best not to hit the sides. There can be peace of mind in a crossover like this, even with the wonky General Motors build quality. Because it's not a car you ever have to worry about. Not because it will never break down, but because it doesn't matter if it does. There's nothing here to grow attached to. This car does nothing to endear itself to you. But hey, you got a lot on your plate, and a Chevy Equinox is here to take some of those things off that plate. Like a husband who swore he wasn't hungry until you started making something for yourself. Peace of mind is one of the most important facets of a good life. Because peace is on the same pedestal as happiness. If you can have peace, you can live comfortably with the uncertainty that exists in each day. You can enjoy things for what they are rather than enjoying them for offering an escape from a life that can be too scary to live. There's a value in driving something that serves no other function than to be forgotten. The Equinox didn't do much to change ideas of what a crossover could be, but it did happen to arrive at the arguable prime of the crossover craze. Because the 90s saw an SUV become the affordable all-purpose solution to suburban malaise, but it was the late 2000s that saw the SUV and similar crossovers become accepted across the board because they were mostly uncomplicated, offered more cargo room, better visibility, and terrain flexibility. And eventually it got to the point where automakers were focusing on crossovers ahead of other body styles entirely. At GM, they essentially took Buick and made everything in the line a crossover except for the Regal Tour X, I think. Now, General Motors will never do this with Chevrolet because under that brand, you have the Camaro, the Corvette, and a sea of trucks. They're not going to switch to a crossover-only lineup, but you can see the basis for why a car like the Chevy Equinox is still in their lineup today and in a prominent spot. Let's look at this from the viewpoint of someone who would buy this car. The 1.5-liter turbo makes 170 horsepower at 5,600 RPM and 203 pound-feet of torque at 2,000 RPM. Those are not world-shattering numbers. Those are numbers that allow this turbocharged engine to run on 87 octane. That's fine for what the Equinox driver would ever need. The 6-speed shiftable automatic, big air quotes here. I don't even know what this transmission's supposed to be other than, look, a selling point to have an extra little thing to move around here in the center console. It's so boring. And I don't know that the release of the electric version is going to make this car any more exciting. Hopefully it'll make it faster at least. It was $27,500 for the 1LT trim, and the base model was only $23,000 in 2021. That's fine, that's good, but again, those are pre-2022 inflation numbers. Ideally, you want something with a stronger endorsement than at least it's not a Nissan Rogue. For instance, the 2021 Mazda CX-5 is about $25,000, while the 2021 Subaru Forester start around the general price. The Toyota RAV4 was a little bit more expensive at the base model, with $26,000 asked for. But I get it. Affordability and accessibility matters. Not everybody lives in the same privileged space to afford the extra few $1,000s for a better trim or a nicer brand. Sometimes you're getting the base, and that's if you're buying new at all. But here's the thing, don't people on a budget deserve better? The used car market isn't what it should be, but there are still options. Yes, affordability can be everything, but it shouldn't have to be the only thing. And yet affordability is the only thing that makes this car worth recommending at all. I feel empathy for people who buy Chevy Equinox because it's always a price decision. The Chevy Equinox has the unfortunate role of competing against the Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, and the Subaru Forester. And all three are more expensive, and with the exception of Subaru head gasket jokes, have a reputation for superior build quality. So General Motors is pulling a Hyundai Santa Fe here and undercutting the competition. And it's working. People are buying these out of necessity. This is one of the cheapest, largest, you get a lot of car for your money cars. If the Chevy Equinox were a person, you'd be the old man who sits down at the bar and says, just give me whatever's cheapest. 2020 Chevy Equinox, the official car of someone whose personality is finding themselves. And they start conversations that way too. Today I found myself at the coffee shop with a tall espresso. Really, Jeremy? That's how your story begins? Not 30 minutes earlier when you got a bank notification that your parents' bank-to-bank transfer went through into your account? Equinox. Convoluted transportation for smug little dicks. Tiny-mouthed husbands driving their Equinox, full of irreversible decisions. And once their irreversible decisions finally fall asleep, they can have 1 hour of a quiet house. And what will they use their free time for? Why, trolling on social media, because when a person feels powerless or insignificant, the cheapest way to feel powerful is to make others angry. So disgruntled, internet troll, Chevy Equinox driver finally gets to bed. And you know what happens? He has the biggest, horniest, wet dream of his life. The type of tumultuous energy that will never come again. You know what his dream was? Well, Kanye presented him with a gold trophy in the shape of an N, on which was inscribed the words, "You're allowed to say it." An Equinox driver wakes up just in time to bust and cry.